The Human Founder Podcast by Gali Bloch-Liran.
Hi, I'm Gali Bloch-Liran and welcome to The Human Founder, the podcast where we speak about the mental aspects of the entrepreneurial journey. Entrepreneurs often describe the emotional roller coaster that is embedded in being an entrepreneur or investor, where you experience the highest of highs, such as when you produce original shows with Steve Buscemi and Sarah Jessica Parker, and the lowest of lows when you close a company. And it's from that place of uncertainty, the need to constantly self-manage ourselves, keep up our energy, and be mentally resilient in order to deal with everything, well, it's not that easy. In each episode, I will be talking to entrepreneurs, investors, psychologists, being their sounding board, with the goal of creating a space for this less spoken about layer, which is the mental aspect accompanying the entrepreneurial journey. I will also share tips and tricks to help boost your focus, clarity, and mental resilience. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Ran Harnevo. Hey Ran, it's really great to have you here with me.
Thanks for having me.
Ran, you're a serial entrepreneur with a rich and diverse background. You were the vice editor and news editor in Tel Aviv magazine, Yediot Achronot. After that, you co-founded and was the CEO of 5min. You were also the senior vice president and then president at AOL. And in the recent years, you were the CEO of Backstage and co-founder and CEO of Homies. So quite a journey, and you have a lot to share with us today.
I hope so.
So thanks for coming and thanks for talking with me. Maybe let's begin in the beginning of your journey, selling 5min to AOL. It was quite a few years ago. And what was the part of the journey, and what was the major success and growth that you helped AOL gain later on?
It's a long question. And I feel I talked a lot about it, so I'll try to be short. We sold 5min to AOL at 2010. We had the funny thing, like we felt proud, $65 million. Today it's an A round. So the world has dramatically changed, but we felt super achieved. And we had, I think, the luck of being acquired by a company that doesn't know what we do and buy us in order to lead and not to be, just another wheel of a technology. A lot of startups are getting bought for the tech. The founders leave after 1 year. Everybody's happy, but then, companies float and sometimes get shut down. We had the opportunity to get acquired in order to strategically influence a multi-billion-dollar company. And we did it. So I think that the interesting, or the differentiated part of that story was that we were a small Israeli company that was able to really make an impact in order to help AOL get acquired by Verizon 4 years later.
So you're selling the company, and then you become, within a few years, the president of AOL. And how does it feel to be there in this, position as a young Israeli, young founder that just recently sold his company, and to step up all those stages and to lead such an organization and a U.S. corporate? So tell us a little bit about it, and how does it feel?
I think we were lucky. And I always say that my point of view about those years is not customary and probably, not something that people can learn a lot from, because we created a dependency in our platform, meaning that it was hard. Getting rid of us was not a good strategic decision for the corporate, and if we would have left, it would have been terrible for them. So we took advantage of that. We had 150 employees in Tel Aviv. Only us knew them. So, I woke up every day saying, if I get fired, I don't care. There's a mentality, there's a state of mind. I'll be fine, And it allowed
But
me...
having 150 employees and being with this mental statement that I don't care if I would get fired, how do you hold it?
It's an amazing place to be at. It's an amazing place to be at because it allows you to not play the politics and the game of corporate America. Just, to a certain degree, you don't have to do it. Of course, you need to get budgets and you need to play along. But at the core of it, you don't need to kiss ass. You don't need to kiss a ring. You know what you're doing. You're growing. You know, your revenues are scaling. We grew revenues from 10 million to 450 million in 4 years. So it was working, and therefore I'm saying I don't think it's a typical journey, because I was a president in corporate, but I was kind of labeled as the crazy Israeli, and I didn't care. And I had a CEO, Tim Armstrong, that completely backed me. You know, I knew that he kind of allowed me to go wild. He thought it's healthy for the organization. So it was a fun, exhausting ride.
So did you feel that crazy Israeli? Like, this is the label that they gave you. Did you really feel that that's who you are, that's what you stand for, that's what you represent? And is it something that you later on saw in the rest of your journey, also
Look,
as the
I think
crazy
it's,
Israeli?
You know, it's very different, because if you get acquired by Google or by Facebook or by, you know, the leading big tech companies, it's a very different play, because there's excellence all over it, right? You're just another smart guy in the room. When you get acquired by companies that are older, you know, that are trying to you know, turn around the company, change themselves, you know, they're kind of old school in many ways. There's a lot of pocket of mediocrity that you find there. I mean, it's inevitable. You know, not everybody wants to work at AOL. Everybody wants to work in Facebook, unfortunately. So you have to have a level of crazy Israeli. I was not the only entrepreneur. We had a crazy Danish guy. We had Ariana Huffington, which was the crazy Greek. So it was a combination of a bunch of newly acquired companies with crazy entrepreneurs dealing with an old school corporate, and there was no other way to disrupt. So no, I didn't care.
And you were in a good company.
I was in a good company, and
they understood that this is part of their growth engine, and this is what they need in order to lead and continue to lead this company.
The CFO understood, and that's what matters.
Well, he is one of the most important guys. She was one of the most important.
Oh, she was amazing. Yeah, you know, eventually, if you deliver, you have, in any company, by the way, small or big, if you deliver, you have a bigger room of expressing yourself in general. Mm-hmm. So I took advantage of it.
And then what happened next? What made you feel that this is it, and you have to move forward to the next stage within your journey?
We acquired two companies. One in $70 million, one in 405. We grew revenues, again, I said, from 10 to 450. It was just like a beautiful ride. But in one hand, the corporate is never satisfied. Okay, so when you do 450, they want you to do 670. Mm-hmm. The next, like I started to get to a point when I realized that we're getting close to what our pipes can give, and that if I'm staying, I'm gonna disappoint by nature. I'm not gonna be able to carry the growth. I just didn't have enough power. On top of it, I saw the duopolization of Google and Facebook coming. Like I saw Google and Facebook data that they were starting to build in the video space, starting to commoditize inventory, and it was very clear to me that they are going to screw us all, which they did. And I just felt that I want to live, you know, at the peak and not at the decline, in a way. I didn't say that, but that was what's going on in my mind and my partner's mind. And
speaking about your partner, Hanan?
I had two partners.
You had two partners?
In homies, I had one, yeah.
So Hanan and you go a long way together.
Yeah, we worked together for 15 years.
Wow.
I think so. A little bit less.
How does it feel to work side by side with someone so closely, to get to know him, he gets to know you, all the strength and the weaknesses and how it works together, and to build companies and to close companies and to relocate and to raise families together and to go through all this journey, staying really close friends and business partners? How do you maintain this special relationship?
I think that founders in general, relationships between founders You can analyze them. You can talk about them. You can, at the end of the day, if you were lucky enough to succeed, it just creates a better environment. I don't know what would have happened if we would have repeatedly failed, but we had 8 years of just a crazy ride. We created the first investment arm of AOL in Israel, which is today Verizon Ventures. Hanan was founding that. We grew. We had offices globally. We flew all over the world, and we enjoyed each other. And we have a very small professional overlap, very small. So he's the tech guy. I am the product and business guy. We trust each other. So it was just natural. And of course, you have everything that you have in a long-term relationship. It's natural. And in the last company, we were not good enough to carry it all the way. But I feel I was fortunate.
And first of all, having these completing skills, which you're focusing on business and product, and he's focusing on tech, it's really great that you don't step on each other.
I think that a lot of stories about founders not being able to carry it all the way is too much overlap. And usually, by the way, they meet each other because they overlap. So you have product people in a big company finding an idea and going for it, or tech people and then as this thing grow, if you can divide the cake and conquer, that's where the friction starts, because everybody thinks it's not even about ego, because we all have ego. It's about just too much overlap. And a lot of times I'm seeing founders and I'm saying, guys, you just overlap. What differentiates between the two of you? So we didn't have that.
And it also requires a lot of trust to know that he owns this part of the cake and he leads those directions and you lead those directions, and it requires a lot of trust on each one's abilities, each one's path and decision making. And also, tell me, in both in the 5 Min and in Homies, you were the CEO?
Yes.
So it's also, how did you make this decision? Oh, it worked for you, and
I think it was natural. I think it was natural. I like to be a generalist, to deal with everything, the Excel, the finance, etc. I don't think we overanalyzed it. I think it just happened and it made sense and it brought a lot of value. So, I don't think we never really kind of emotionally analyzed it. It just happened and it's just a good fit. We had a market fit.
You had a founder fit.
Yeah, founder fit. It's a good copywriting. Founders fit.
I'm not sure. I'm just saying. Okay, so going back to 5 Min, AOL, you're leaving. What happens next?
I left on my 40th birthday. Since we were close to content, our work was very notable, which is fun. A lot of times you have crazy entrepreneurs that can't really explain what they do because it's so good and sophisticated, and we did something so understood that people could have. So I was bombarded with offers. I took a huge bet in trying to help musicians in a company that was founded in LA and Kiev, and I tried to join. It was called Backstage, and we tried to give tools for musicians to own their data and their customer and their fan base. On paper, I knew it's a huge bet because we started the POC, or the MVP, was with Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande. So on one hand, if it works, you can conquer the world. But if it doesn't, it's a clusterfuck. And it was a clusterfuck, in my opinion. For many reasons that I won't go into because it's too complicated. But I learned a lot. But after 1 year, it was clear to me that this won't work. It was acquired eventually. I don't think that it was a huge success, but it was okay.
Well, what did you know that won't work? I mean, what was there that you told to yourself after 1 year, I should move on? It's not going to happen in the way that I see it as a CEO. I mean, you see how the company works, how the company operates. You see the clients, you see everything. What was the red traffic light that told you, Ran, move on.
There's a lot of details that are, related to the combination of investors and founders and things that I was like, just didn't connect to. But if we want to speak product, I think that going top tier to bottom and not bottom to top is extremely difficult, because starting your journey, with the biggest customer you can have is really dangerous. Mm-hmm. And I actually saw it as an opportunity in the beginning. Sometimes it works. If you're going with a celebrity or a huge publisher or a huge company as your first client, if it works, it has a lot of upside. Mm-hmm. But I realized that the politics of music and the way it's structured and the way you can't really get into musicians and bring them on board, you always have to talk with managers that are mm-hmm. very money-oriented, very short-term oriented. That the whole long-term play that we were trying to kind of install inside this industry just doesn't have a chance. I'm not surprised that Patreon eventually was the one that won the space we got into, because they started with the bottom, with the hungry people, with the long tail, with the mid tail. I think that my only product conclusion out of that was always start with the long tail and the mid tail. Starting top tier is extremely complicated. But again, it was. I don't see it as a huge lesson to share with people, because I think it's just something that didn't work, that is not a scalable kind of conclusion to everybody.
Okay, fair enough. So you're living backstage.
Yeah.
You already live in New York.
Yeah, I live in New York for a good amount of years. Yes.
Yeah, and then what happens?
Then I'm like, after this year, it was very clear to me that I want to control the DNA of a startup. I want to choose the investors. I want to choose the culture, the go-to-market. It was very clear to me that I'm going to go to the root of things. I felt that the media industry, which I love as a human being, it's one of my biggest passions, content, and the kind of the hybrid between content and platforms is really governed by Facebook and Google in a way where it's really hard to create something new. And I always had a passion or a long-term idea about creating communities for immigrants.
Where did it come from?
From me being an Israeli in New York for so many years. And I'm always passionate. Again, I'm a journalist. I was a journalist in my heart. Some part of me will always be, I'm in the scene and I look above and I'm seeing it from above. I think the people who write do it a lot. Mm-hmm. And I always had passion for, the flavor of immigrants in New York is so dominant. I think it really what represents the city, not only the percentages of immigrants, but also the acceptance of them. And then I started to travel the world. When I was in AOL, I had offices in Berlin and LA, San Francisco, Chicago, Toronto. I just went all over the Western world, including Tokyo, and the amount of immigrants I saw everywhere, in tech, I just thought that the world has changed dramatically, and that these people don't have the right tools to have a better life. On the surface, it was a brilliant idea, by the way, when I started it. The amount of compliments I got from people that saw the market, saw the opportunity was immense. We went back to our investors. We took $4 million.
It also was a very big rise in all the understanding of communities, right? And how it works, and the people started to go online for communities and less from the offline that was before.
Right. And by the way, I'll touch it when we'll analyze why it didn't work. Mm-hmm. Facebook groups was a shitty, neglected product inside Facebook. Mm-hmm. And I actually did the validation because I come from, the content side, and all the content companies in the world was getting Facebook's back. BuzzFeed moved all their inventory into Facebook, and Tastemade and many other platforms were like, okay, the future of Facebook is video. This is what Zuckerberg said. I called a bunch of friends on Facebook, and I just felt that they're not going communities. There's a huge opportunity. There's a huge white space. And that's it. And we started working on it.
It's like when I'm teaching my students, they always like to show the competition chart, right? Then they put themselves on the right corner, and next to them is Facebook. Because in many, many products or ideas that they have, so Facebook is doing it. And Facebook is a code name, to all the big companies. And always tell them that it's pretty, to put Facebook next to you in those situations, so it needs to better be analyzed. But this is actually part of what happened, because they started with some feature that was pretty neglected, and you actually dive deep into leveraging it and making a product out of it. And then it flipped a little bit, right?
They completely changed their focus, which is, look, I did an experiment in Twitter a few days ago when I asked everybody to share their first screen. I really like it. I feel that by understanding what people put on their first screen on the phone, you can understand pop culture and what really works today and trends and whatever. And I saw Spotify on I'd say 80% of people's phone here in Israel. And if you're outside of Israel, Apple Music got into the market first. Spotify got in later. And still Spotify conquered the market and won this big, gigantic 3 trillion company, Apple. And because they just have a better product. So what I'm trying to say is, the fact that a big company is around what you're trying to do doesn't mean that they're going to do it better, and doesn't mean that they're going to win all the time. These companies are failing as well. And again, you have all this, people who blog and write about startups, and they will give you conclusions. There are no conclusions. If they're going to go head to head with you too early, you're going to get screwed. But usually they don't, and sometimes they do. And for us, the fact that Facebook, in my opinion, went and said our future is community, what they basically did is reducing the problem that in the world that we were trying to solve. And they did it right after we raised another 12 million with really good outcomes from our kind of MVP. Really good retention. Like it looked like it works. And since then, we had 2.5 years of trying to extremely differentiate ourselves, because what Facebook is really giving people is distribution. And the minute they're moving their distribution to communities, what they're basically saying to people, if you will create a community, everybody will hear you. So everybody that had a page closed the page and moved it to a group, like we're seeing it. And I think that, retrospectively, in hindsight, it was hard to compete with that level of distribution.
So you see it happens, and you just recently raised $12 million, and you have the investors, and you have a team of already, how many people? Like
20 plus.
20 plus people. And is there a certain point in time that you, in retrospective, or also at the same moment, that you look at what happens, you look at the data, you look at the product, you look about everything, and you say, okay, Ran, it's not going into a good direction. There's no future to it, and you have to make the hard decision and to understand that from now, maybe you give yourself another year or 2 years to try to maximize it, but you already have this inner understanding that it's maybe not going to the where you aimed it to be.
I think that every entrepreneur doubt themselves during their journey. I mean, it's a psychological. You're a devil advocate and the most optimistic person in one brain at the same time, simultaneously all the time. We understood that something happened. It took us a few more months to understand how deep they're going to it. But our product was launched in a very, very small markets. So the first thing we did was to increase the amount of markets we're going into and see what happens. And I think we were kind of like, my VCs call it a twinner, which is you might raise more, you might not. Like we always felt we're 50%. And the fight internally is to improve market fit all the time, to improve market fit. There were not a lot of pivots that we could have done with the platform and what we've built. I think that we should have gone for revenues earlier, for fintech earlier, because fintech for immigrants is an extremely viable market. It was not our DNA as an engineering group, product group, and we might have taken that turn too late. But certainly, you have a doubt when you're going and competing a distribution platform with 2 billion MAUs.
So you see this, you see what happens with Facebook, and you're very smart, you're very sharp, you're into the numbers, you have 20 plus employees, you have Hanan with you, you have the investors. And how do you manage it that on the one hand, you just raised $12 million and you have the money now to work, but the inner belief of what you're doing, you say yourself, we felt
No.
No,
The inner
what I want to say,
always...
the need, the problem that we're trying to solve is now less crucial because there are other solutions now for this thing.
Right.
So it's not that the inner belief in yourself, that you're not sure now that this product will deliver what you aimed to deliver.
Look, I'll talk product for a second, but again, I believe that the only rule in the startup market is that there are no rules. I'm so tired of these TechCrunch thumb rules. There are no rules. And I'm a big believer in verticalization. I think it happened it always happens. You start with a generic product, and then in smart areas you can verticalize, touch people's passion and win. When ESPN started, I come from television and media. Everybody thought they're crazy and they're drunk because you can see sport on big, and they proved that you can verticalize. And Nextdoor, which is a social network for neighborhoods, proved that you can verticalize social by giving utility to neighborhoods, etc. And we looked at a lot of products that tried to verticalize the social experience. Some of them were extremely successful, and some of them didn't. So the focus here was, if we want to unhook people from the generic platform for a specific need, we need to be 200% better, because if we're going to be 130% better, it's not going to be enough for people to unhook. Now, we had 1 million users a month. Some of them were extremely passionate. There were signs of oil all the time. The question was, do you get to a critical mass? Do you get to a hockey stick? There's a lot of gray in this area. And even when we went for funding, and we were with very good American VCs, Spark and Hanan, like smart people, we were not sure we won't be able to raise. I had 2 due diligence processes. One of them was with one of the biggest VCs in the world for 3.5 weeks. We were kind of in the middle, and I think the doubt stayed even when we shut down the company. We were not sure that we didn't have a chance. So there was no clear-cut kind of conclusion. It was just a very expensive experiment that at one point we felt cannot be funded in the amounts that we wanted to fund. We could have raised less, by the way. We had a path, we had RVCs backed us, we could have stayed there and fight. But at one point we felt that sometimes you need to raise a white flag.
And Hanan, you hold this conversation, and are you unanimous, or there are different voices within this?
I think we were very transparent. I'm a very transparent person. I'm not a cheerleader, and I don't lead by cheerleading. So I think that all of our management knew everything all the time. And it was an intelligent conversation, throughout the struggle, and we knew what doesn't work. There was no, I'm talking about the high level management. We knew what doesn't work. But then again, in the startup area, you never know, Sometimes you're seeing stuff that
the ambiguity, and it's like...
Again, there are no rules. Sometimes people raise money and you're like, what? And sometimes...
On what?
Yeah, so, I believe in retrospectives, and I like podcasts about retrospectives. I think it's important, and we did have... I learned a lot about consumer, about product, about a lot of things. I think we didn't have enough velocity, and we didn't have enough viral, organic growth to make investors convicted that there's a there. And again, we had almost 1 million monthly users. Our 12 months retention was around 40%. The product was, I'm very proud of the product team. I think the product was like super legit. And at the end of the day, I don't think we had a clear market fit.
And you get to this understanding and you decide to close the company. So it's like the process. Take us a little bit deeper into the process of closing a company. Because especially from this place that you're coming from as a serial entrepreneur and a successful one, and that had already an exit, and also had a failure now because this company didn't succeed.
Yes.
And sometimes lots of founders, it's difficult for them to talk about the failure and to also describe what happens there in the closing of the company, because many times it also combines a dispute with one of the founders, and that might be the reason. But here, that was not a reason. You were very strong together, but you made a decision that this company now you should close. You shouldn't raise more funds now. The product is not going to the direction that you want. And then what happens? Like how much time it took to?
No, I don't think Look, I'm trying to be. I think that the problem we were trying to solve was not big enough.
Yeah.
I was very proud of the product. At the end of the day, not a lot of people passionately adopted it and told friends that they have to take it, otherwise, their life would not be as good. So the main assumption of this cohort of people, beautiful people called the immigrants, need something of their own, was probably, you can say it's either execution or they didn't need it. And I feel very whole in the sense that there was a very talented team trying to solve the problem that took a lot of good product decisions, and eventually they didn't need it as much as we thought they needed. It was not a founder's clash. It was not a product direction. I mean, yes, we could have gone to fintech earlier. We could have changed.
It's like the validation also changed. So in the beginning, it changed. It went into a different place with the need of the user. But I don't want to focus on this, and I stand correct.
You want to focus on the mental side of
because
things.
The product was good and you had an amazing.
The product was not fit,
Yeah, it's a matter of fit.
Yeah.
But what happens there when you're coming now to close a company? How do you manage it?
So we wanted to raise another 20. And scale marketing and bring more users and show something and then adapt a business model, etc. And, after meeting, I'd say, let's say 30, 35 VCs. It was inside Corona, by the way, which I thought was a problem for a company like ours because I couldn't meet them in person. I couldn't take them for a drink and explain more about the vision. Everything became so dry. You had 45 minutes over Zoom with a company that doesn't have ARR, MRR, like all the standard.
Metrics,
It's consumer. It's a little bit more complicated. I felt it hurts us. And at one point, I told the team that, I'm getting the same feedback again and again and again. And some people took a deep look. So it was not like we were not rejected after one call. And, so I had time, New York was very COVIDized. I had long walks, in the snow. It was in the winter. A lot of conversations with Hanan, with my other management, understanding that we might not get the round. And if we won't get the round, we have 4 more months. And in a way, you start to deal with it. And you start to process it, and you start to understand that it might happen. It doesn't come overnight. And at one point,
you're transparent with your leadership and the people.
With the leadership, yes.
During this 4 months.
Yes.
How did they accept it? It's like understanding that this is the situation and helping.
Again, I'm not a cheerleader, and Hanan is not a cheerleader, and we're not creating a DNA of cheerleading. So we were very transparent, and I had amazing employees. I think that they believed. I think that employees today in the startup scene are not dumb. They have access to the data. They see the data. Everybody sees the same thing. And they had a belief, and they thought that we will be able to pull it off, and we will be able to race. And again, at one point, it was clear that going for the same 20 mil is not going to work, and our board decided basically gave us a time to create a plan for 4, 5, 6, where they would put a good chunk of it, and we will find the rest, which was very doable. So it's not a down round, but it's something around the flat round, and going into war. And then I think that Hanan and I understood that it's not a good path, and that we have to be mature. And maybe the fact that we already won gave us some confidence to do something which maybe is not intuitive.
And also to, in a way, to trust your judgment. And as you say, you're very transparent. So to look the reality in the eyes and to understand that this is maybe the mature thing to do, the right thing to do, and not necessarily continue pursuing it because you're in love with the idea or that you worked so hard so far. But from the more mature perspective, to understand that you have to draw the line.
Yeah, I think, look, it was a natural, when you win, I think there's two phases in startup life. Finding a market fit, and then scaling and executing the fuck out of it, and to get it to the maximum valuation that this market fit can give. Okay? In our first round, we did it. Some people would say we sold too early, I don't deal with it, but we were able to take our pipes and our technology and drive it to $200 and something million in revenues, acquire companies that fit our product. So I had enough confidence in myself, and I knew that if I'll find the market fit, I will scale it to, and I feel like that today. I know I can do it. If I'll find market fit in
This is also the inner strong belief that you have within yourself and abilities to drive those things forward.
Yeah, and it's also, I did it. It's not only a belief, it's like I did it. So then you have to take that aside, and you have to take the ego aside, and you have to look deep into the market fit question, period. And to be very analytical and honest with yourself around the market fit question. And the problem with consumer products, a lot of times, it takes a lot of time to decide if there's a market fit or not. My next startup, I will go to something where the call about market fit can happen much earlier in the game.
To have this understanding and how it looks and how it goes.
Yeah, or in another way, would they pay? So the call was, the vagueness of the market fit was clear and was reassured, unfortunately, by the investors community. And then the question is, do you want to stay in the swamp for another 2 years, cut costs, pivot here, pivot there, play? I saw so many people that kept their companies for 8 years, 9 years, 12 years, just to not shut it down. And I just didn't want to play that game, as hard as it is.
So then what happens? You share it with your leadership, and then in this situation, on the one hand, they want to help you to see if there is any way out or not, to do their maximum. On the other hand, you are the founders. They have families. It's their salary. How do they hold this situation?
Look, we were mature. We took the decision with a lot of money in the bank. It was, the point of decision was way ahead there. Nobody was hurt financially, and it was clear to us that nobody would get hurt financially. We paid every fucking penny to everybody. We live in an environment where we're so fortunate that people found jobs after a week or two. Okay, so I'm like, we're lucky. We're playing with other people's money to play and try to build big dreams. We have no personal liability, and this industry helps people to find their next journey very, very early in the game.
Speaking of playing with others' people money, so having your reputation as a serial and successful entrepreneur, and you are in the details, and you know the work, and you know the market, how do you feel personally later on when you know that investors put money on your company and you didn't make it?
Yeah, I feel like shit. What do you mean?
I'm sure, but how personally, you handle this with your investors later on, that you feel that you didn't deliver. Although you tried as much as you can, you did your best, but at the end, you didn't deliver the ROI on the investment that they believed in you.
100%. It's a process. It's a mental process. First of all, most of our investors invested in us in the past. Okay, I'd say 85%. So we were successful to them earlier in the game, which smoothes the thing, you know. And that helped. I have to say that most of them were just inspiring in their reaction. I was very moved by how mature they were.
Can you deepen a little bit about it? Like share how
they send mails. They you know, I asked you before we started talking if you know The Wire, which is the best television show ever. And they always play about the game, the game. You know, it's the rules, it's the game. And at the end of the day, you know, in the startup ecosystem, there is a game, and in the game you lose. I have to say, almost like, you know the stats and you still create a new startup. And there's something very humbling and shocking to be on the other side of the statistics, because I was lucky on my first run. And did I overcome it? Yeah, I think so, but it's hard. It's just mentally hard to disappoint, especially when people, you know, give you money. I don't think there's a way around it besides time. And besides choosing very good people when you start a company. And I think we were fortunate enough on that end to choose very good people to invest in us. So it wasn't easy, but it was softer than other stories that I heard of.
And it's really it really makes feel good that within this complicated and difficult situation, you see, although they are disappointed, you still see the empathy, and you see that they see you, and that they know that you did everything you could have done.
I'll tell you a funny story. I'm validating a new idea right now.
Okay.
So I'm going around and I'm showing it, and I'm considering to go for another round. So we'll see. And one investor told me, I think 2 weeks ago, he said, "Are you ready for it?" And I said, "I think so."
It's exactly what we spoke about earlier. Yeah, if you.
And he said something really nice. He said, "Look, you're going to raise 5 million, you're going to raise more. It doesn't matter. The money that we're putting in you right now in this industry is cheaper than the next 3 years you're going to spend." And I thought it was a brilliant comment. It represents the amount of money that there is in the market today. But in general, we spend 4 years of our lives in it. The opportunity cost is crazy. And we gave our heart, our soul, our blood, our, you know, everything into it. And I don't think we were clumsy or not serious. And I think so at the end of the day, everybody pays a price. And I think that mature investors know that a part of the game is shutting down companies. And as long as they believe that you gave your heart and your soul and your best effort, I think that it kind of cushioned the whole ecosystem.
I think you really beautifully said it, that they invest the money, but you invest the time and all the efforts and the sacrifice of the company and the family, and everyone that is around you. And it's really 4 years of your life to give to something that eventually it's first and foremost it's your disappointment.
Right, but you also need to have a bigger perspective, right? Like we like to glorify the suffering of entrepreneurs and the price they pay.
You wouldn't do it
and this
if
whole
you wouldn't
romantic
have
kitsch behind the sacrifice and the roller coaster. But guys, like, you know, we are playing with other people's money. Most of our investors are playing with other people's money, by the way. We don't have personal liabilities. We have the opportunity to try and achieve amazing, you know, success and build global. Like, we're fortunate. If you open a restaurant and you get shut down, you might have liability or debt for 7 years out of your pocket. So I'm like, we got to put everything in perspective at the end of the day. We're pretty fortunate to do what we're doing. It's hard, it's mentally hard, but I don't like the glorification of the suffering at the end of the day. Like, we're big boys and we need to handle it. And
I think that suffering is as a matter of perspective, and it's something subjective that each people,
suffering is always subjective.
But it's not about the suffering, it's about the choice. This is our choice to do this. We understand the prices. We're committed to these prices, just like the investors made their choice to invest in you, and this is a risk.
Right. No, but I just wanted to mitigate, like, you sacrificed 4 years of your life. Some people are...
No,
yes, we did, but let's put things in perspective.
Yeah, definitely. So actually, your closing homies, which were for immigrants.
Right.
And you find yourself also with COVID and with everything that happens with the company, actually decide to stop being an immigrant there and coming back to Israel after like 13, 14 years, right?
I'm a semi-immigrant anyhow.
You're a citizen of the world.
No, here I'm also like...
No, but it's, also the issue of, we won't get deep into it, but immigrants, it's something very, very deep with our personality as Jewish people, as Israelis. It's something that goes very, very deep psychologically wise into our nature. But then you choose actually this process, not solely that you close the company, you also decide to change back your life to a different territory. So maybe take us for a couple of minutes about this journey of, taking yourself to New York, actually creating there or being among the founders, the foundation of this community there of Israeli entrepreneurs and founders that start to go to market to the East Coast and not necessarily to the West Coast. And then how it turns later on to decide to come back to Israel.
Yeah. Look, New York is one of the biggest loves of my life.
I share it with you totally.
I love New York. I like Brooklyn. I lived in Williamsburg in the last 10 years. I like so many things about it. It's easy for me to talk about it right now because it's January and I don't miss a single day in January in New York City. So I'm very happy to be here right now. First of all, I think we were lucky enough because we dealt with media and tech to not go to the West Coast. I don't like Silicon Valley. I think that if you're a tech guy and you live in the US and not in the Valley, it's probably for a reason. I don't like how homogeneous it is, how gentrified it is, how tech controls everything. New York City, I love. Like, you're just another industry. And when I came in 2008, the whole industry, the ecosystem in New York was, I think, smaller than Tel Aviv. We were like 6 Israeli CEOs, more or less. There was Taboola, Outbrain, Wix. There were very few companies. Innovid, and today I think there's over 400 Israeli startups. So there's in Williamsburg, I think there are hundreds of Israeli engineers and product people. It's just like we kind of conquered the city. They call us the Israeli mafia with a very good connotation. I think our brand in New York City is really good. And New York gave so much to me, and America gave so much to me. And even as an immigrant, I think New York is the closest place to Israel in the world. 16% are Jewish. In my floor, in the building I lived, we were the only apartment without a mezuzah. The only. So it's very homey. And I think that New Yorkers just accept immigrants. They just accept you. So I never felt that my accent is a burden. I just never felt it. I know a lot of people that went to Europe, like, it's so different. So America, and at least until Trump, is immigrant friendly. But when we shut down home, and if you say that crisis is an opportunity, I have 2 kids, 12 and 9. If I would have run for another gig, win or lose, 4 or 5 years, we end up, they're 17 and 14, it's over. You don't bring them back. Like, you don't, their personality is so in tune that it's just over. And, throughout the last 5 years, I'm also dealing with, my kid had a neurological syndrome that had a lot of work to be done around it. And all of homie's journey was also a journey for me as a father that deals with a serious condition of their child at the same time. And I believe that childhood in Israel is just absolutely better. And maybe I'm biased, but absolutely better. I don't think that adulthood is, but childhood, I think, is a no-brainer. And we were sitting in a junction where it was clear that this is the last time we will have the dilemma, whatever we decide. And we chose to come after 14 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's quite a change. It's quite a change. I mean, it's coming back to the roots in a way, although to your kids, that was the default, like the States was
they're
the
American.
default.
But
they're Americans.
they had fluent Hebrew. They have fluent Hebrew. Came here for months every summer. They're doing much better than I thought so far. No, seriously.
Children are strong.
No, but they're having fun. They're not just okay with it. They're actually, childhood in Israel is just
They're
great.
becoming the Israeli children in Israel, or they're more like the American...
But that's the beauty. There'll always be a hybrid. I don't think they'll ever be fully Israeli. And I think that Americans, they just won't be because we brought them here. So they're going to be hybrid kids, and I kind of love it. I think they have a lot of perspective.
I agree with you that children that have the perspective of the world, their ability to survive and learnability and the way that they tackle instability and changes is much stronger. And as parents, I think this is the most important thing that we can give to our children.
And also
nowadays,
they will never fully and blindly buy the narratives that are being sold here by the system from a very
more
young
skeptic.
age.
They're more skeptic about it.
More diverse,
Yeah.
yes.
So, Ran, we'll hit a pause in a second, but I talked to you, and you have you've had such a journey, and your charisma is so strong in the way that don't take it as a compliment, just as
I'll take it as
in a sense that building companies and selling companies and bringing the best investors into the table, and then also closing a company and still processing it in a good way, in a way that it doesn't break you. You understand that this is part of the journey, this is part of the game, as you said it, and do you feel that what helped you strengthen and build this inner confidence and charisma within you that I think serves you in a lot of the things that you're doing, the places that you're addressing? What do you feel that enables that?
No, I actually think the last few years were humbling, in a good way. When our first journey was so crazy, not only in terms of revenues and valuations and all that shit. We were able to produce shows. I had a studio in Hollywood. I was able to test the music industry, the TV industry, the cinema industry, the tech industry. It was all working like a one big orchestra, and I felt unbeatable. And then I got beat. So I actually feel that it humbles you, and it puts perspective on how much luck, although you know it, but how much luck is needed in so many ways. I know so many startups that were just shitty and got acquired, and I know some companies that were amazing and kind of took a wrong turn at one path. But I think that the fact that I was able to scale and to a place that I never thought I'm going to be at. And it gives you confidence. You understand that it gives you confidence that, again, if you're going to hit a market fit, you can take it to a very long ride. So now the question is, when you're 47 and this industry gets older, I don't think founders are 25. No, but I also don't think founders are 25 anymore. Look at the founders of big tech. They're all starting to get into the plastic surgery industry soon. So, you can. So now the question is, should I go for another one? Should I try another one? Should I help other big companies? Should I invest?
Big questions.
Yes, I know.
A lot of choice, let's see where it takes you. I'm really curious about it.
Yeah, again, I'm a huge fan of Douglas Adams, and I think he put so much perspective in me, the things we think are dramatic are not as dramatic as
definitely.
we think. So it's a big question, and on the other hand, it's not. So I'm trying to take it easy. I'm not saying I'm successful in it all the time.
But you're trying.
I'm trying, yes.
Working on ourselves, it's the most important thing. We cannot be who we're not, but trying to better ourselves and to be more accurate with the choices that we make.
Yeah.
I think this is, and getting this perspective and being very humble and grateful for
I'm
what
not
we
very
have.
humble. I'm not very humble. I'm not gonna lie. But here's the deal. I think that this industry has so much money into it, and so much scale can be built so fast because of the infrastructure that was put in place, that we sometimes forget that the money we're making and the amount of success we're having is completely disproportional to how it should be, and we're not as amazing as we think. If you write an amazing book and you're failing, you can distribute it as much as a good technology. It doesn't make... So what I'm trying to say here is that when I'm talking about proportion, is this industry is so full of, bullshit, that at one point you need to try and kind of find yourself a stamina or a grounding that is not related to this crazy blurb and competition and cliches that are, people are drowning in it, and I'm trying, as much as I can to not to.
I think that your last sentence is as strong as it is. The message that understanding that there is more to it than just the cliches and just the money, and to really find the things in life that creates a stamina and helps you feel this grounding and the perspective of what's important for you in life.
We talked about... Hanan and I have a disagreement on the conclusion of homies. I'm extremely competitive. Now it's controlled, I think, and I'm not afraid of the world failure. And Hanan just doesn't like it, and I think he is right overall, because if failure is, did you get acquired, yes or no? Yes, we failed. But if we had fun and we learned and we evolved, and mainly if we created, then it's not a failure. It's not a success, but it's not a failure. And I think it's all about, it's all about getting up in the morning and create. And that's where you need to get your energies. I hope I'm not too new agey right now.
I don't think it's new agey. I think that the perspective that you're describing now, although you're very competitive, as you, you reflect about yourself. So, it's either we look at the goal and the bottom line and what we're aiming to get, or that we'll look on the journey and the ride and what we're observing during this ride and what we're learning. And if we know that every day we learned something new, we created impact, we helped others, we were fulfilled and grateful for the things that were in the same day. And I think that also COVID helped us a lot in understanding this state of mind. So I call it life, because at the end, that's what's important, to my opinion.
The question is what purpose is. And if purpose is success, then it's extremely stressful.
It's a definition of how do you define success.
100%.
I think this is the key. If you define success as an IPO or exit or selling the company for, I don't know, in this valuation, this is your success. And I know many founders that are being there and they're not happy. But if you describe success as waking up in the morning, to do the things that you love, to work with the people that you love, to be a father, to be a CEO, to create.
You need to work. I agree with you. And I think most people will agree with you, theoretically. And then the question is, how do you really get there? How do you really feel that? And I think that the amount of pressure, subjective mental pressure on founders during the journey, from investors, from community, from the press, is sometimes so high that you literally need to work in it. You need to remind it to yourself. Therapist is never a bad idea. You need to be able to be grounded. By the way, also on your way up. And again, enjoy your way up. Success is I think is great. It's amazing. It's not a bad word, but you need to remember the volatility of it all. But the volatility also has an upside, because when you're down, There's still it's still an extremely volatile ecosystem. So
yeah, so having things, bringing things into perspective, and really look at the journey and define each time how you see success. I think it's really crucial in order to also to enjoy the ride and to know how to manage all those stressors around us. And we can speak about so many other things because I feel that you have so many knowledge and experience to share. And I know that I also feel that you like to speak and you like to share, and you're a content creator at the beginning, right? So this is who you are. So you have a lot. Yeah, I got you. So thanks again for coming today and sharing with us all your wisdom and experience, and a bit humble, a bit not, but giving your own truth. And this is what I admire the most. People that want to catch up with you, to contact you, where can they find you?
I'm ran.harnevo at gmail.com. I'm available.
Great. So thanks again for coming.
Thank you so much. A lot of fun.
Thank you. To our lovely listeners, we're going to hit pause until the next episode. That's also something I say to the entrepreneurs in my clinic in between sessions. If you enjoyed listening, I would really appreciate it if you share the podcast with people who you think would derive value from it. Thanks to the amazing studios at Google Campus that allow me to record here the content. Feel free to visit my website at galiblochliran.com and leave your details there if you wish to be updated and learn more about the mental aspects of the entrepreneurial journey. Also, be sure to follow my podcast, The Human Founder, in any of your podcast apps. Let's hit pause. Till next time. Bye. Thanks.